Hi, this is Amber.
And this is Lisa.
And you're listening to Unexplained Arkansas, a new podcast that explores urban legends, mysteries, and the unsolved in the natural state.
We're just two best friends discussing the unexplained in Arkansas.
Hi, and welcome to... Okay, hi, and
We're
welcome
still giggly.
We're still giggly. Let me try this again. Hi, and welcome to Unexplained Arkansas. My name is Amber.
And I'm Lisa.
Yes, it has not changed since the hour before when we started this. This is part 2 of a two-part series. So this is an episode on Georgia Tann, the baby stealer of Memphis. And we want to do a quick shout out to all our fans who have kind of stuck with us through the last 8 episodes. This is 8, right?
This will be 9.
Oh, this is 9? Okay.
Yes,
so
we have
7
episodes.
published.
Yeah.
Yes. So after these 2, we will have 9 episodes. And so after this, we'll go to a more weekly routine, which we're still trying to hammer that out. So we won't give you the details for probably another few days. We're going to decide. You're at
least going to get one a week.
Yes,
people.
You'll get 1 a week. Yes. And in the summertime, maybe 2. Yes. Yes. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. We're really enjoying ourselves. Like I said in the last episode, we already have some speaking engagements lined up. We're really just going big.
we're gonna stand on stage and giggle.
Yes, that's what we're going to do. No, but we really love what we do, and I think Lisa and I both really have a passion for investigation. You should have been in journalism with me when we were younger.
I did.
That's all I did.
I did.
That's all.
I did.
You did the cartoons. You did the cartoons in the newspaper.
I did, and I wrote a review. I did a review.
Oh, you did. I forgot. You did a review.
Yes, of Jules' album Hands. I believe.
Yes, I remember.
Don't even get me started.
You loved that album.
No, I didn't. I loved her first album.
Oh,
I loved her first.
That's right.
And I did not like the second one. I was like, are you kidding me, Jewel? Sorry, Jewel, if you're listening. And people, young people are like.
And she is listening.
Well, we did figure out our demographic age is 35 plus. So surely some of you know who Jewel is.
Yeah. How old is Jewel? Is Jewel 50 yet? I don't know. There's so many stars turning 50 this year. It's just kind of sad. I was looking. Yeah, I was looking at all the stars that have just turned 50 or are about to turn 50, and I'm like, holy crap. There are lots of people that, when I was a kid, were teenagers or whatever.
She's 49.
So she's close. I knew she had to be close.
Yeah. My goodness. I was thinking she was way older than us, but
no, I figured she was about that age.
That's weird.
Okay, so how did we segue to Jewel? I
don't even know.
Newspaper. Your one newspaper review. That's right. Yes. I really want to say you did more than just
semester. No, I did it just one semester.
One semester of journalism.
Yeah. I just needed a filler. And Courtney was like, come to our newspaper. Yeah, I was like, yes, I will, Courtney. I'll hang out with you and Amber. She's like, come hang out with me and Amber. And I was like, of course.
Yeah.
That sounds fun.
It was fun. I loved it. I loved our journalism teacher, Miss Romy. Shout out to Miss Romy. She's the best. So she's retired now, but I loved her.
Good for her.
So,
just like
good
me.
for her. Yeah. But yeah, so we both really like this investigative stuff. And I think that this podcast has kind of filled that void for me because, I'm a teacher, I'm a professor now. So, I still do research and stuff, for work, but just that real good investigative journalism type stuff I don't do anymore and haven't for many years. So this has been a really good substitute for that passion that I used to have. So this story,
and I just love to read.
Oh, you do. You love to read and you love to talk. So there we go. But this story in particular has been something that I've been researching for over 15 years. And the first episode we talked about Georgia Tann and the story of how she started her infamous black market, human trafficking. She was selling babies, and we know it's documented that she was
lots of money.
Yes, that she was selling them to stars for lots and lots of money. So today we are going to bring it home
like
and
Joan Crawford.
Oh yes, stars like Joan Crawford, Dick Powell.
Ric Flair,
the wrestler, was a Georgia Tann baby.
Baby. Mm.
Yes. So there's more than that. Who was the silent movie star? Mary Pickford, maybe she was one of the ones that got a baby from, I don't know. I've read different stars or whatever got babies from that organization. But we're going to kind of turn it around this episode and look at it from an Arkansas standpoint, because this is Unexplained Arkansas. So there has to be an Arkansas connection to everything that we talk about. So the Arkansas connection to Georgia Tann is the fact that she would find babies here in Arkansas, and also in Mississippi, which is her native state, just places around Tennessee, is where she would send scouts to find the babies that she would then bring to her adoption agency and then adopt out to rich and affluent people. So that's where we are starting today, or in this episode. Yes. So one connection that I've always made in my head, there was a figure in ancient Jewish folklore called Lilith, and she was called the night monster because she was said to have stolen babies in the night. So in my head, it's kind of like in the 1930s and 40s, there was a real night monster pretty much lurking in Memphis, Tennessee.
Do you think that's where they got the name Lilith in Cheers? Frasier's?
I don't know. I don't know.
That connection.
I like the name Lilith. Yeah.
It's pretty, actually.
Yeah, it is. But Georgia Tann preyed on young, vulnerable girls from poverty-stricken areas in Arkansas, Mississippi, and Tennessee. And that is all documented, and that is true. Some gave her the babies willingly, though, but others had no idea who Tann was and what she was doing and why she wanted to steal their children. It was just absolutely insane, the stories that are now coming out about what happened during that time period. So according to Business Insider, homes for unwed mothers, welfare hospitals, and prisons were targeted by Tann, number one. Also, she had lots of doctors she worked with, and the doctors would tell the new mothers that their babies had died during childbirth, and those children could then be buried at no cost to the families. That's what the doctors would tell.
Oh, wow.
Would tell the moms.
And then they would sell the baby.
Yes. So according to Robert Taylor, who was a lawyer who investigated the children's home scandal, he said that if they were unsedated, this is being the mothers, and tried to hold onto the babies after the baby was born, Georgia Tann would step in and say, "Well, you don't want people in your hometown to know about your pregnancy, do you?" That's how she would get some of those babies.
Manipulation.
Totally. But Georgia Tann really never paid for her crimes, if you ask me, because she died in 1950. But families all over America have been paying for the last 50, 60 years. So my work and the research that I've done has been to find more of these victims and their families, help the reunification efforts, and also maybe find out what happened to our own family member who we are going to talk about today's podcast.
Okay.
So really, this is kind of personal, and, we don't get into the personal very much, but this has so many interesting ties to Arkansas and the unexplained that I just couldn't resist, bringing this up. I do run a Facebook group for Georgia Tann research. So if anybody is interested in...
What's it called? Is it called that, Georgia Tann?
Yeah, it's called the Georgia Tann research group, I think. I will put it in with all the links and stuff. And so if you want to join me, which what we do is we just look through boring ancestry records and talk to each other about our own experiences and things like that. Earlier today, when I was preparing for the podcast, I did find several new clippings, new to me, that I had never seen before, regarding the aftermath of when the children's home was closed. They started looking at the stars that were taking part in these illegal adoptions. So I'm going to put all that stuff out there for everyone to see, though. It's really interesting. Yeah.
Awesome.
All right. So really what happened to our family regarding Georgia Tann is pretty simple.
And this is Scott's.
No, this is my husband's family. Yes. Yeah. Okay. I do have their permission. I've talked to them for 15 years about trying to find this baby or find his remains and just, answer these questions. But in 2000, let's see, when did we get married? 2006, I think is. Yeah. Cause it was the year after y'all. Y'all were 05. I was 06. Okay. So it was like shortly after we got married, I started doing work on Ancestry.com for his family trees because I'd already done all my family trees and I love Ancestry. And I traced like one of his families back to Jamestown, just having all kinds of fun, right? So then I go to one of his grandmother's lines and I find that his grandmother had given birth to a baby in the summer of 1945. And I asked him about it. He said, no, that can't be right. So then I asked his mom about it, who has since died, but she said, that can't be right. So we looked at it and sure enough, there was a baby that had been born to his grandmother in the summer of 1945, but that's really...
so this is his mom's mom?
Yeah.
Then, okay.
Yeah.
And what...
It was an accident that I found it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. But she was unwed.
She was unwed at the time. Mother? Well, okay, I found that out, that she was unwed because her... Scott's grandpa was in Italy. He was in the military and they had not gotten married yet. They hadn't even gotten engaged yet or I think met yet. So,
okay. Yeah. So it was before she met.
This was before. So, yeah.
Okay.
And this was 1945. So it would have been the year
when
after
she had the baby.
World War II ended. Yes. So all that kind of plays a part. Stuttgart. We're going to get into all that too.
Okay. Gotcha.
All that kind of plays a part in it. So, basically it started out as an innocent ancestry search. And, I felt bad because I had uncovered this big family secret, but his grandmother had been dead for a long time and his grandfather. And, to her dying day, she never told anybody about that baby.
Wow.
Yeah. And
so sad.
Yeah, I know. It made me really, really sad. So I've been looking ever since. And this has been 16, 17 years, whatever. I've been looking ever since to try to find answers. What happened? Who was the father? Why did she have to give it up? All those questions. So what I know for sure is that this is Georgia Tann, she thought of babies as commodities and she had scouts all over the place and probably in Arkansas too. So who knows where Mary Helen, which is his grandmother's name, who knows where Mary Helen made contact with a Georgia Tann scout, but the point is she did. It could have been in a doctor's office. It could have been at church. It could have been, who knows? I do know that in the 1944-1945 time period, she was an usherette at the Majestic Theater in Stuttgart, Arkansas, which is another really cool detail.
So what is an usherette?
What is an usherette? I think that would be your dream job, honestly, because all you do, you wear a pretty outfit. Because I looked it up. Yeah, because I went to the Historical Society in Prairie County, and I looked up pictures of usherettes at the Majestic. And so the Majestic usherettes would dress up in these pretty little outfits, and they would seat people, and I guess get popcorn and all that, whatever they needed.
Oh wow!
So yeah, she was an usherette at the Majestic.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So now I know that she was in her late teens, early 20s during this time period, somewhere around in there. And by this time, it was 1945, and Georgia Tann had been doing this for years. As we had said in the previous podcast, Georgia Tann had been at this for well
like
over
since
2
24,
decades.
like 1924.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're going on the third consecutive decade of her stealing children and selling them for profit. And it was documented that she had several babies in her care who were connected to unwed mothers and mothers that were in prison, mothers whose husbands died, mothers whose husbands were at war, all kinds of things. So anyway, long story short,
this would have been wartime. Yeah.
Yeah, it was wartime.
World War II. Yeah.
And here is another little interesting tidbit. I hate that word, but that's the only way to describe it. Okay, so lots of really cool things were happening, I guess, in Stuttgart in the 40s. They also had an Air Force field or an Army airfield. It was called Stuttgart Army Airfield. Yes. So that was something that was established in October of 1942, and it was located in Stuttgart, and it was over 2,600 acres, or about 7 miles, it was on 2,682 acres, and it was about 7 miles north of Stuttgart is where it was located. Okay. And this was called it was part of the USAAF, or the United States Army Air Forces. And there was also a USO downtown in Stuttgart, apparently. And I didn't know that. I just found that out too. That is very cool. According to a relative, because we did go back, and there was only just one person still living that was from that time period, just one. And and it was a close relative, and they said they remembered, they were a little girl when all this happened, but they remember that Mary Helen was seeing an airman or a young soldier. So probably
someone coming
somebody
in and out.
So probably somebody from that airfield but I don't know.
And I don't know, we kind of get into geography for maybe people that, are few listeners from the countries.
Yes.
But where is Stuttgart in position in our state, like compared to Memphis? Because she was in Memphis. So
she was in Memphis. And actually, I am so smart. I actually did a screenshot of that from Stuttgart to Memphis, showing the proximity. And it really isn't a long drive. There was a bus that went there. And I know, according to the relative, that Mary Helen did get on a bus and travel to Memphis. And the story she gave was that she was going to be an usherette at the Orpheum. And the Orpheum is a theater in Memphis.
Yes.
So
still there, right? It's still there.
Yeah, it's still there. Yeah.
Yeah.
But she was going to be an usherette there. And so that was the story. And she got on a bus, and nobody saw her for months. And then, in the summer of 45, she came back home, got off the bus, and, like nothing happened. Yeah. And it was never spoke of, ever.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that is so common. That story, happened again and again. Different girls, different places, especially in the American South, especially in places where, I hate to say it, but Bible Belt, when women got pregnant, they tried to figure out other alternatives rather than have the child out of wedlock. And, it's shameful that these women, it's shameful that these women had to give up these children. Yeah. These women shouldn't have had to give up their children, which is another reason that I just would get so angry. I'd read over my notes and I'd be like, oh, this probably just devastated her. Just the whole thing probably just completely
and then not
devastated
being able
her.
to talk about it, and just that.
And just to keep it, she kept it silent her entire life. She took it to the grave. Yeah. So,
that is so sad.
Really sad. Yeah. But who knows how many situations there are like that in the state of Arkansas. I started thinking about that. If there were Georgia Tann scouts in Arkansas, this situation has probably happened multiple times. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So there was the airfield, and also another thing about the airfield in Stuttgart, I thought this was interesting. It hosted a prisoner of war camp, so a POW camp for both German prisoners and Italian prisoners. So German soldiers and Italian soldiers were in a POW camp in Stuttgart during that time too. Yeah.
And that is really interesting because Stuttgart, I don't know a lot about Stuttgart other than I know it's the rice capital of the world. Yeah. So it's huge in rice.
And that's all I know. And my husband's from there.
Oh, duck hunting. Duck hunting.
No, duck and rice. Yes, of course, duck
and
rice.
Yes. But
my husband loves his hometown. Yes, it is small.
I mean, isn't it? Yeah.
It is. My husband loves his hometown, and we go back every once in a while. It's the population of Stuttgart. You'll have to look it up on your phone while I'm doing my story, because I don't remember. But it's yes. So I love it though. It's a cute little town, and there's lots of history there. We looked for the Majestic Theater because it's since been torn down or whatever. We found Mary Helen's old house. Like I said, I was going to write an entire book on this, or maybe I didn't say it. This was, when I started this was going to be a book project. Yes, this was supposed to be a book project because I wanted to find out what happened, and I wanted to find the remains of this poor child. But neither one of those things have happened yet. I just feel like as time goes by and I learn more, maybe someday I'll find the answers and I'll get to publish that book. But I don't want to publish something until I solve the mystery.
This is interesting about Stuttgart. So the population as of 21 was 8,000, 8,056, but it was established by German settlers. So evidently Stuttgart was actually a place in
now,
Germany.
I didn't know that.
So,
Yes.
German. So lots of German. Maybe that's why they brought the POW German people. I don't know.
I don't know. But I thought that was interesting because the POWs were out there working on the farms and stuff. They actually had them out there working on the farms with Stuttgart farmers and stuff like that. So
they're like, go to work. Prisoners of war.
Well, I don't know, but that's interesting. Weird. It's very interesting. So from what we were able to find, like I said, she got on a bus and went to Memphis. Now, I don't know where she stayed when she was in Memphis. I have looked everywhere I know to look online for any unwed mothers' homes.
Did Georgia Tann kind of open up the house?
An unwed mother? No.
Okay.
She outsourced everything. Like we talked about in the last episode, she was evil, but she was a very smart businesswoman. So everything was outsourced. So she worked directly with, I'm sure, certain unwed mothers' homes. And so she got first pig when the babies were born. So I know that was probably what happened. So the person that had told us what they remember was only about 12 years old at the time. But she was very sure of what she remembers. So, but that's really all we had to go on. And that person has since died as well. So, so most of it is, still kind of a mystery. I've thought it through numerous times. I've thought through numerous scenarios. I've written scenarios, where, this happened and she went here and there, but I don't know. I don't know what happened during the time that she found out she was expecting a baby to the time that baby died. Now, I'll jump to that really fast.
Because there was get into, was there a birth certificate?
There was 2 death certificates.
But no birth certificate?
But no birth certificate.
Death.
And yes, and we have kind of wondered what to do, from that point, because I know we could probably go to Tennessee and get the original birth certificate. I mean, Scott would be one of the last living, descendants or whatever, relatives. But as far as the certificates, there are 2 certificates of death. I found both of them on Ancestry. They were written in 2 different handwritings. It's apparent it's 2 different handwritings.
Wow. And I've looked at those, so I do remember.
You have copies of those. I think you lost them, though. No, I'm kidding.
I did.
Yes, you did. Okay, but first, how did I know that it was a Georgia Tann situation? How did I know that he was a Georgia Tann baby?
Yes.
The way that I knew was watching an Oprah show. And this is true.
Well,
this
good. Everything.
True. Yes.
Everything goes back to Oprah. So what happened on this Oprah show?
Okay, so, and I'm going to link it. I was watching old clips of Oprah on YouTube, and I had suspicions that it could be, part of the Georgia Tann situation, but I thought there is no way that's what this is.
And how did you know about Georgia Tann? Just from Like, where did you learn about Georgia Tann?
I'm not even sure where I first heard about Georgia Tann. I really don't remember where I first heard about it, but somehow I was researching and I ran into the baby ring or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I thought in the back of my mind, I was like, well, maybe baby boy Hardister would be part of this horrible thing. Ring. Maybe. I hope not, but it's a possibility. So anyway, fast forward literally years later, I'm sitting on the couch and I'm
watching Oprah clips.
And I found one on Georgia Tann. I'm like, oh, look, there's one on Georgia Tann. So I start watching it. And one of the boys, well, he's an older gentleman now, but he was talking about where he lived. He said 1556 Poplar Avenue. And I literally jumped. I'm like, Scott, I'm like, oh my gosh, 1556 Poplar. And he said, what? And so I said, 1556 Poplar. He said, I don't know what you're saying. So I run in there to the office and I dig out, because this is, like I said, was years later. So I dig out the the death certificates.
Okay.
And his last known address, the baby's last known address, 1556 Poplar Avenue.
And so there you go.
That was the home. So that was his last known address. So really, I didn't have that piece of information until a few years after the initial thoughts. So like I said, it's been a long 16, 17 years of this. I come and go with it, like I run this group on Facebook, but I'm not as active with it as I should be. Because I just don't have any new information. Now, since Ancestry has kind of beefed up in the last couple of years and, all that, there has been some new developments, some new articles that have from the 1950s that I have put out there for people to read today. Actually, I put one that I thought was interesting, but I've kind of put it on the back burner. But then when we started talking about our podcast and the things that could go on them, I gave it a second look and I thought, I'll go back and I'll look at the research I've already done, see if I can find some new research and just kind of put the word out there. I mean, there's no shame in, what happened in the 1940s. I mean, but there's also no culpability.
Back then. Yeah, but I mean, gosh, that's just so sad.
Because I asked Scott, I'm like, do you mind me talking about this? He goes, no, I don't. He said, I want to know just as much as you do. And, the story behind it is so sad and it's so unfair that nobody paid for these crimes. That's kind of why I keep going and I keep researching and hoping that someday we'll get an answer, a concrete answer as to
about what happened.
What happened when she got on that bus in Stuttgart, Arkansas. What happened? Because everything between the bus at Stuttgart, Arkansas and the bus back is a complete mystery, except for those two death certificates.
It's a shame she didn't have of course you didn't find this out till years later, but like a journal.
I don't think she would have wrote that in her journal. I mean, she took this to her grave. I mean, I can't keep anything secret. I mean, I tell you everything I hear within 5 minutes.
We're I have no secrets.
I'm not a secret keeper. So,
but,
I mean,
going back,
just the sheer. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, because Elle came in and wanted me to smell her new perfume.
That was. Oh, Lord have mercy.
She snuck in. I told you she went to Ulta. In the last episode, I told you she went to Ulta.
In the last episode. Okay.
And she bought some perfume. But did you talk about what all the death certificate said?
Oh, the death certificate.
Because there were two.
So anybody that has any knowledge on Ancestry or looking at these kinds of things, these records,
you can go to the White County Library and look at you can get on Ancestry and it's the library edition and it's very
that's right,
very detailed. So
and there's also a student edition for $4.99. I do need to plug that because my cousin just sent that to me yesterday, that if you're a student somewhere, I think you can have some kind of edition for $4.99. Anyway, so all of these are public information on Ancestry, so anybody can look at this information. So I don't think I'm outing anybody as having a baby out of wedlock in the 40s.
Public record.
And it's 2024. Nobody cares. And, my heart still aches for Mary Helen. And I feel like part of my story is telling her story. And that's why I keep going back to this, even, 17 years later. I want her story to be told. And I want, I know there probably won't be any justice because who knows where the remains are, but, and
Georgia Tann,
she was a victim. Yeah. She was the victim of a crime. She was the victim of a crime. Okay. So you were asking about the death certificate.
Yes. So what did it say the baby passed out? Like there's two different ones.
There's two different ones, and one says cardiorespiratory and infectious diarrhea and premature, and then the other one says the same thing, but it's in a different handwriting. So they say pretty much kind of the same thing, but
are they dated the same? I don't remember.
Yeah, one is dated John Gaston Hospital, which was an old hospital in Memphis, and from some of the research I've done, Georgia Tann did have some connections within that hospital too.
Okay.
So,
but were they dated like the same death date? Like the same?
Yes, I'm looking at them right now.
Okay.
But this 1556 Poplar was his last known address, which is the address of Georgia Tann. And the date of birth on, we'll just call this death certificate A, is July 15th, 1945. And let's see. The date of death is July 28th, 1945. And then same thing, same date on death certificate A or B. So
that's crazy that there's two.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay, so here is why I have held on to the theory of the two death certificates for so many years. Because why would you need two death certificates? Number one. Why would you get two death certificates? And it is documented that Georgia Tann would just write her own birth certificates and death certificates and falsify documents. That is very much a documented true statement. And, I say allegedly a lot, but it is true. She would falsify these records.
Yeah.
And so, my question is, are we looking at something that Georgia Tann herself wrote? Who knows? So it's very interesting. Like this is literally the case that keeps on giving.
Yeah. And do you have an opinion about what you like? Do you really think he passed, or do you think he was one of those that they say died that were sold?
Okay, so that's a loaded question, and I've asked myself that a million times. When it first happened, I wanted to say, yes, he was still alive and this was all faked, and I wanted to say that he's out there somewhere. I was so sure that I paid to have Scott's last living relative on that side, the last sibling, I paid to have her DNA swabbed so that I could use that to try to find just an inkling, anybody that might be connected. And so, because I was sure that maybe she had falsified this document. But then I researched a little bit more and found that there was a disease that just, it was something that, it was like a diarrhea, dysentery type infection that just swept across Memphis in that time period of 1945. And lots of babies died. And also in the Taylor report, they confirmed that lots of babies died in that time period from that infectious disease. So that leads me more to think that he's not alive. So that's where I am with that. I wish.
And remind me, what was the Taylor report? Sorry.
He was finally. Oh, we were getting into that later.
Oh, okay,
in this
gotcha.
episode.
Okay.
We're kind of getting away from my outline.
Sorry.
But,
let's go back to the outline.
Let's go back to the outline. Okay, so back to the outline. Suddenly in the 1930s. All right, so like I said last episode, Memphis became a hot spot for high infant mortality. Unfortunately, Memphis had the highest infant mortality rate, higher than any other U.S. city at the time. And somebody found out that information that worked in human services, and they're like, what is going on? Why is our infant mortality rate so high? And so that's when they started investigating some of her fraudulent acts. Yes. They found out she was falsifying birth certificates, things like that. Lots of rumors and sad tales of death and neglect. They basically called 1556 Poplar a house of horrors. Now, let me say that house is no longer standing. They did bulldoze that house. And so it's not there anymore. Now, I will put pictures of it from the past, but it is no longer there. I have been to the spot on my little tour I did to try to get more information back in 2019, but we'll talk about that in a minute.
Did they describe the inside of the house in the articles?
Yes, and some of them they did. Yes. And some of the things that happened to the kids there. But after the rumors, and you know, and I'm not saying all rumors are true, but a lot of rumors have a little inkling of truth, like a nugget, you know, somewhere. So the Child Welfare League then asked a probate judge named Samuel Bates to write a letter to the Tennessee Commissioner of Public Welfare and seek an investigation of Tann. They're like, that's it. We've had it. We've heard all these awful stories. So in his letter, Bates said that the Tennessee Children's Home had failed to follow the advice of medical advisors on health and sanitation in the home, and resulted in the deaths of those 50 children. And that's where I think our relative, I think he was kind of in the middle of all that, unfortunately.
Kind of get into like what, I mean, just health and, I mean, were they like
it was pretty much unsanitary conditions, probably like a lot of babies sleep, probably a lot of not cleaning, babies sleeping in beds with sick babies, babies sleeping in beds with sick babies, things like that. You know, because if it's an infectious disease, then, you know, it's airborne a lot of the time. So, or sometimes. So in Bates' letter, it contended that Tann and her colleagues had used unfair tactics, including blackmail, to defeat adoption law reform in Tennessee. So not only was she using her adoption business to make lots and lots of money, she was trying to bend and reform the Tennessee adoption laws to benefit herself and her little empire. So, yeah, like all kinds of evil, like evil on a stick. Yes.
Yeah. And this was greed evil. I mean, did you see anything? Because in the last episode, I know we talked about these babies were, instead of maybe going for $7, they were going for thousands of dollars.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that was just a fee. That was an adoption fee. That was just what you paid the state because you were adopting this child, and they wanted, you know, most of the adoptions to happen in state. Well, Georgia Tann was sending these babies all over the place. New York, California, just everywhere.
And pocketing
it. And like we said in the last episode, she also had high-ranking government officials in her back pocket. In fact, she was so untouchable that the governor at the end of all this, at the end of her life, the governor, Jim McCord, did not officially initiate an investigation. And according to sources that were published, his office tried to keep some of it from leaking to the public because it just sounded horrible. Yes. He didn't want
like reputations.
Yes, it was a reputation thing. He wasn't he was worried about their reputation, I think. So it was not until 1950 there was a man named Gordon Browning who became governor, and he was elected on the promise that he would end political corruptness. So apparently there had been some corrupt politics in Memphis before that period. He, found out what was happening with Georgia Tann, and he said, okay, do an investigation. So Robert Taylor, this is where Taylor's report comes in. Robert Taylor was a lawyer who investigated the Tennessee Children's Home Society scandal for Governor Gordon Browning. So asked where Taylor came from.
Yes.
That's where he came from.
So he started investigating for the governor.
So he started investigating. So Taylor spent more than a year working on what ended up being a 240-page report. Now, this is per Business Insider is where I got this information. I got a lot of information from the Commercial Appeal, from Business Insider, lots of different sources for this story. But according to Business Insider, he spoke with countless child welfare experts, psychologists, pediatricians, and he was told all kinds of terrible things were happening in that home. He said, and I quote, "We found that on many occasions, babies had been taken only a few hours old and placed in nursing homes in and about Memphis where they were without medical care. Children placed in the Memphis home itself were not properly cared for, and many children died while there as a direct result of violations of physicians' orders," which again could have been what happened with our situation. So eventually there was a dysentery outbreak, and it swept through the orphanage. Now, this is according to Lisa Wingate, who wrote a really popular book on this subject. Taylor used the phrase, babies dropping like flies. And he estimated that 40 to 50 children died in 1945 in like a 4-month span. And that is the time. And that is the time period where our relative was in that home. Yeah. So that's why we think,
more than likely.
Unfortunately. Yes.
That is disgusting. I mean,
I know. I know. So this was 1945. So this kept going until 1950. And then Georgia Tann died in 1950, September 15th, 1950. And she died 3 days before the state filed charges against the orphanage.
Oh, wow.
And then right after that, guess who announced her retirement?
Who?
Judge Kelly.
The judge.
Yes. And then she ended up dying. Yes. And then she ended up dying in 1955. And she was never prosecuted for her involvement, her alleged involvement.
So what did Georgia Tann pass? Like, what happened?
I think she had she had a cancer. I think it was uterine cancer or something like that, which is kind of ironic given what she did. Yeah.
Did she ever have biological children?
No,
you
never
mentioned
had her own. No,
she adopted.
To my knowledge, she had the one partner, Anne. And that's from what I've read, they were partners. I guess people could argue they weren't, but from everything that I've read, it looks like they were. Big deal. Yeah. So they had the 2 kids. Anne had one that was her biological kid, and then Georgia Tann adopted one. In all her doings, I guess she took a child and adopted her for herself and Anne. So,
and that child was June.
That child was June. Okay. Yes. Okay. So in 1966. Okay. So 1950. Let me back up. 1950. Crap hit the fan. Georgia died, and then there were no answers. A lot of what happened died or got buried with Georgia. Yes.
Gotcha.
So the lawsuits, of course, started flying after that.
Wow.
Finally, in 1966, Tennessee passed adoption laws that allowed adopted adults to search any remaining records to locate their parents, but records were routinely destroyed by Tann at the time, so there wasn't a whole lot to look at. I mean, there were some, but not everybody found what they were looking for.
And then she had pretty much doctored records as well. So it was
she had doctored records. And then, I mean, it like I said, this is the case that just keeps on giving. There was just so much. I mean, there was just so much going on. And anyone I've ever told this story to is like, how did this happen? Like anybody from Memphis, they're like, how did this happen in my town? And I never heard it. I'm like, I don't know, but it did. Yeah. So
it was in 1945.
Yes. So let me tell you just, about my trip, my research trip. I've had a couple of trips for research. One I did in the summer of 2019. I traveled to Memphis. Actually, that's not true. I went to Nashville on a little girl's trip. And then on the way back, we stopped in Memphis so I could do some research. So, yeah. And so it was my cousin and I wanted to find out, a little, I wanted to find the marker first in Elmwood Cemetery first. So,
where the babies were buried.
Yes. So we went there, and my cousin helped me find that marker. And of course, we read about that at the start of episode 1, but I'm going to read what the marker says, just to kind of reiterate how important all this is. It says, in memory of the 19 children who finally rest here, unmarked, if not unknown, and all of the hundreds who died under the cold, hard hand of the Tennessee Children's Home Society, their final resting place unknown, their final peace a blessing. So this is a big monument. It is in Elmwood Cemetery, about the middle of it, and it's not hard to find at all. Elmwood is gorgeous. It's a gorgeous cemetery. There's lots of photography devoted to it because it's got so many gorgeous tombstones and statues and buildings and things like that. It's worth going to if you're in Memphis. So
I'll have to check that out. Most of the time when I'm in Memphis, I'm going for a dance competition or actually, hey, we go, I told you this, Tuesday we're going to West Memphis for a ball game.
Yeah. So well, the cemetery is just over the bridge over there on the other side of downtown Memphis. So I go
check that out.
Yeah, I go every once in a while because it's gorgeous and I can get some good photos there. So my initial thought was I'll go to the cemetery, I'll find the memorial headstone, take some photos, and we'll leave. But then I read the inscription about the 19 babies, and I got so sad. I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, my heart just sank, right?
Yeah.
So when we left, I thought, you know what? I'm just, me. Go big or go home, right? So I told my cousin, I'm like, let's just
take a nap.
Or take a nap. I either go big or I take a nap. Yes.
Yes. One or the other.
Feast or famine. So I told my cousin, I'm like, let's find her house. Let's just, for fun, let's find her house. Because like I said, the Tennessee Children's Home had been torn down years ago. It had been demolished, but her house was still
Parlor Street or whatever it was.
On Poplar. Now, off of Poplar Street is the Garden District of Memphis. And it's so cute. Yes, it's gorgeous. And I won't say the exact street because, I don't want the people living here to have people camped out. Not like that's going to happen, but it is in the Garden District. So, I think it's my ex-reporter skills. I don't know. I was able to find the house using Google. So I ended up driving out in front of the house. I'm like, oh, that's it. So I parked the car. My cousin's like, oh my God, you're going to get out. And I'm like, well, you bet. We came all this way. I'm going to get out. So I got out. I started walking up the sidewalk. And there was this sweet little blonde lady out there playing with her dogs. And she looked at me and I said, I am so sorry to bug you, but I was wondering if you could answer a question. She goes, are you looking for Georgia Tann? And I just I was like, whoa. I'm like, yeah. I kind of am. She goes, oh, honey, people come here all the time asking about her. And I was like, really? And she said, yeah. And then she said, would you like to come in? And I'm like, oh cool. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, well, yeah.
So, I guess you looked honest.
I guess so. So my cousin and I, we went in and sat in her little parlor or living room and talked to her. And, she was so sweet. She was just precious. And she had the house for sale though. She had the house for sale. And I think she had a buyer. I don't know if they ended up buying it or not, but she had a buyer at the time. But she told me, she said, trust me, you're not the only one that has been looking for that woman and, asking questions about her. So at this time, I think there were several books that were being written about her. So I'm sure people were researching her at the time. So she gave me a tour of the whole house and we went to the attic and we went to the little basement area. Oh yeah. I've got pictures of all that. And I don't have anything of hers that, like personal that I took a picture of. Cause I don't want to invade anybody's privacy, but like the staircase, I took a picture of that. There was like an empty cupboard in the basement that I took a picture of because it was so creepy. And
basements are creepy.
Well, this one was extra special creepy. Yes. So she showed me the house. We went from room to room. Literally, seriously, the hairs on my arms stood up. Every story she told just freaked us out a little more. And my cousin does not believe in anything paranormal or supernatural, but she was getting a little freaked out.
Okay. Ooh. So spill a story.
Okay. So she said that when she had bought the house 3 years earlier, they had not told her about the infamous Georgia Tann case. She didn't know who Georgia Tann was or why it was even a relevant thing, right? And then she said that a few things started to happen around the house that she would call, quote unquote, unexplainable. Now, I don't remember everything she said. I just remember her saying that cabinet doors would open on their own and things like that. And, she knew that something awful had happened in that house, but she wasn't sure how or where to find the answers. So, like I said, at the time I was there, she was in the process of selling the house. She said that her realtor had asked if she wanted a psychic to come in and do a reading because, it's Memphis. There's psychics, right? And so a psychic did
There's psychics
come in.
Everywhere.
Yes. But she said that the psychic came in and said definitely something bad had had went down in that house, you know, for sure. True story. So yeah. And like literally the hairs on the back of my neck were standing up. I mean, it was so creepy. And, you know, I'm not a big believer in the paranormal either, but I did feel like some bad energy. Something. I felt like, something, you know, so
like heavy.
Something heavy. Yeah. And in fact, she's still my friend on Facebook, and I haven't talked to her in a while.
Georgia Tann's presence.
Not Georgia Tann, the lady that lived in the house.
I'm just saying, it's just Georgia Tann's presence.
I don't know. They say evil never dies. I don't know.
No. Evil. I don't know. Evil just attaches.
I don't know. Did we said find...
Well, did they in any of the research? Did it ever say if anything bad happened in her home? Was she bringing any babies or children through?
I can't find evidence of. You know, there are rumors that there were remains and
on the property.
And pretty much it's kind of how do I say this? There's no straight answers to where those 19 sets of remains came from that's in Elmwood that I have found. Maybe there is. Maybe somebody will call in and say, hey, we found them from such and such. But I just don't know.
Yeah.
I don't want to say they came from her property because I don't know. I don't know where they came from. They may have came from other unmarked graves. Maybe after the babies passed away, you know, she would bury them in what people used to call potter's fields, right? In unmarked graves. So maybe these were a collection of the remains and they just put them in one place. I have no idea. That's something I need to look up. That's a good question. Yeah. So, like I said, though, that was interesting. That was an adventure. Yeah. It sounds like something you would do. Yeah. I don't know who owns the house now. I'd love to go back again though, because it was creepy to the max. Creepy to the max. Yes.
Awesome. I love a creepy. So the house was pretty old. I mean, obviously pretty old if she lived there in the 40s.
It was a really nice neighborhood, though. Really nice neighborhood in Memphis. Yeah.
Was it redone? Like the house, was it redone or just
it was pretty
kept?
Much like it was. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
It had all the cool little 1930s, 40s kind of, you know, architecture stuff inside. I thought
what about
it was
like
just
lighting?
Precious.
Like I love like when you see like old electrical things. Yeah. It's like buttons instead of like switches. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know. I was more interested in the ghost than the house. No, I'm kidding. Oh. I'm kidding. I don't believe in ghosts. I have a paranormal podcast, but I don't believe in ghosts. No, I don't know. I don't know what I believe in now. Okay,
Unexplained.
I believe in the unexplained. I believe in the unexplained. That's what I believe in. All right. So, so that's pretty much my adventure. You know, what I have, you know, been looking at in all these years. It was a lot.
Yeah.
You know,
that is a lot.
It's a lot.
So was there, so I know that they just think thousands of babies during the lifetime. And of course they found the 19 bodies, but whatever happened to, I guess my questions were, whatever happened to her partner? Like what happened after she died? Because I know they were left with an issue.
Right after she died, they started the investigation. She ended up being buried. She's buried back in Mississippi.
Okay.
Yeah, I think she's probably in a family plot or something like that. But then after that, people started lawyering up, and there was lots of accusations. Like the biggest accusation, of course, like you said, were the 40 to 50 babies that had died of the diarrhea epidemic. Well, the Memphis branch of the Tennessee Children's Home at the time denied the doctor's charge that happened. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. There was a lot of denial. So
everybody just pushed the buck as far as what they knew and didn't know.
There was a man from the Memphis and Shelby County Medical Society, one of the officials that said the death rate at the home during the epidemic was hushed up, actually. So,
okay.
Yeah. So I mean, lots of creepy stuff. And
so they just closed. They closed it down when she died, and demolished it.
Eventually, it was demolished. Yes, eventually it was demolished. So
did any like, I mean, the lawsuits that were filed, obviously they couldn't go after Tann. So who were they filing against? Like the state
I think
or
it
the
was
Shelby County?
Because she had amassed a pretty large estate for the time period. I mean, not from today's state. I mean, I don't remember how much of an estate she had, but she had amassed quite a bit of money. So, yeah. And I think some of it, I don't know, I guess there was some legality about whose money it actually was because she had profited off of those adoptions. So,
yeah. And she had named, as far, like, did she have her child, the June, get her the money, or have, or did she name?
I can't find her actual will.
Partner?
I have looked for it in Ancestry. And so that is something I'm still kind of looking at. I actually today I pulled up some, census records that from her and Anne in 1940, and they were living in Memphis then. And then I also found Georgia's own death certificate. I found that today. So there's a lot of things that are available now in Ancestry that weren't available even a year or 2 years ago. So I really feel like that we're just hitting the tip of the iceberg of finding out even more things about this awful case. What I would like to do, though, I would like to find more people in Arkansas who are somehow connected to Georgia Tann. And what,
reach out.
So, and my Facebook group, of course, is for anybody, it's kind of nationwide. I've got people from all over the country in it, but I'd really like to find people connected to this case that are from Arkansas, because I know that there is an Arkansas connection there that I just have not fully tapped into yet. Who knows where the scouts were, who they were, how they supplied Georgia with these babies, from poor Arkansans, unwed mothers. That just breaks my heart that this was happening in our state.
Well, it's just sad. I mean, it's just sickening that
it is
profit off of, these sad moments and, try to, anyway.
Yeah.
And then
she used manipulation. She used manipulation to take advantage of women in these situations.
To make money.
To make money, right. And then some of the babies ended up dying. I mean, like I said, this story just keeps going and going and going. And, as much as I'm sure some people in Memphis may hate talking about it, it really happened. It really did. Well, and there's still so many unanswered questions.
Yeah. I mean,
and there's still so many people that never ever found their homes or their families, their actual biological families. So there's still people out there that have not been reunited.
Yeah. It's just sad. Well, okay. So like you said, so if anyone has any Georgia Tann connections, please email unexplainedarkansas@gmail.com, or you can find us on Facebook and the Instagram. Instagram. So DM or just reach out to Amber's on Facebook and Instagram so you can reach out directly to her. Amby, you have to call her Amby.
No, please don't. But I do want to keep this investigation going. I'd love to find some new leads. Right now I'm stuck. That's why there's been no book published. My friends are always like, why aren't you ever going to, when are you ever going to publish that book? I'm like, I can't publish it unless I find out, I'm kind of stuck at the moment.
Well, and also, and you have a baby.
And I have a baby who I hear screaming in the other room, by the way. Scott's screaming. Scott's Mr. Mom tonight while we do this podcast. So, all right. Well, this is it. This is all I've got.
Okay. Well, we'll wrap up with, we said in the other episode, let me find it real fast, because we did have, I think we had a few more comments. And in the other episode, we did mention that I was excited. We have a lot of U.S. listeners. And of course, we love our United States listeners, and we love most of them are related to us. But we do have some countries, and we have Germany, Italy, Poland, Canada. That's so exciting to me specifically. Do you care, Amber? I'm just kidding. She's like, nah. No, she does. She loves. But we really do care that you go and rate us and follow us. Especially we've got a good rating, so that's fun, but we just want a whole lot more listeners to rate, because probably, goodness, maybe 1/10 of the listeners are giving us ratings. But we do have some, bear with me, comments. Ooh. Hey, you mentioned in the last episode your mom listens.
Oh, yes, I muted myself for a minute because I really do have a baby screaming in the next room.
Okay. Okay. Well, listen. So we mentioned your mom's comment. So your mom had already said good. So there is on number 7. She said, "Good job, thumbs up."
Aw, that's sweet. Thanks, Mama.
By Paula.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and Kim says, and we mentioned that Kim is such a sweet listener and listens every time. So Kim says, "Kim here. I was born in McCrory and lived in Augusta a while and never knew this." So she was talking about number 7 as well, Dehorn's grave.
That was so much fun.
She said, "My dad just passed." I know that was fun. Pizza. Yeah. My dad just passed in August, and I would have loved to ask him about this. Excellent story, girls. So that was Kim, and that was from number 7. And I do think there wasn't on number 6. Let's see. Some of them we did, and some of them we didn't have some comments.
Yeah, we love comments, and we will read your comments. We will read them out loud.
Yes, we will
share them.
Yeah, Kim did comment on episode 4. Said, "Kim here, y'all. I had no idea how detailed this was. I learned so much." This was the boys on the track.
That was a good
way.
one too.
And she says,
"I'm so proud of us. We do such good work." No, I'm kidding. Okay.
Yeah, I know. And she's so cute. She said, "By the way, I love your banter. I'm hooked."
We have had less banter the last couple of episodes because we're kind of trying some new things.
Well,
we've
had a lot.
True.
On,
that's true.
So, yeah, I mean, no, that we've had these stories.
Yeah,
have
they
been
have
big.
been. That's true.
So
yes,
big.
Yes,
and that we've gotten. I think we've gotten. Some good.
Yes,
banter.
I think so. And if anybody has any other big stories, please let us know. We have gotten several emails actually and messages, telling us about some stories we had no idea about.
Yes. One I'm working on, the Maud Crawford. In fact, I ordered a book, and it's the disappearance of Maud Crawford out of Camden.
So shout out to
Arkansas. And
one of my buddies, Justin. Before. He was telling us about this one.
And there was a Natalie on our Facebook as well, I believe. I believe her name was Natalie. So there was numerous about this one. Yeah. Maud.
Oh wait, is the Maud? Now which one is the one from the one that Justin told us about? Was it Maud? No, it wasn't Maud Crawford. Which one was it? The book you ordered yesterday?
No, but Maud Crawford was the one I ordered.
Right. Mm-hmm. Awesome.
Yeah. So that one was that one was suggested by, I think, your friend, and then someone on the Facebook
cool
group, and maybe on Instagram.
Okay, well then I guess we're going to do that one pretty soon. Yeah, that one's coming up pretty soon.
Yes.
We do have an episode on Ruby Stapleton, which was the unsolved murder in Searcy. That one's coming up too. We have, of course, the West Memphis 3 will be coming up in the next few weeks. That one's going to be a big one. That'll probably be at least a 2 to 3 part episode there. So yeah,
we'll both kind of
definitely because we've both done some reading and research on that. So yeah, we have big things coming up. So keep commenting, keep telling us what you think and giving us ideas. We love you guys, and we will be back. Yes, and we will be back next week. Yes.
For listening.
Thank you very much.
Yay.
We thank you. But we will be back next week with another episode. So we will see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Love ya.